This is an educational video in response to a New York Times opinion piece by Matthew Vines, in which he seems to be blaming the downturn in support for LGBT plus rights on use of the word queer and on queer theory. Descriptive words are neutral, except for the meaning that we personally give them. But those words themselves are neutral. For example, the color red is neutral. Many people love the color red. It became an insult for a period of time because it was used during the Cold War as a term for communist. But that does not make red itself bad. The word queer itself is neutral, neither good nor bad. What causes some people to see it in a bad way is the fact that they have been used to associating it with insults. The word itself is neutral. There are times when the word queer and when queer theory are actually very neutral, and in some cases maybe even a bit positive. I do not recall ever using the word queer publicly to describe God, but a case can be made that there is an element of the word queer that relates to God. Let me see if I can explain. God is a being that is so complex that we will never be able to completely understand God. It makes God kind of the other, the different, the queer. And where we see that probably the most definitively is the cross of Christ, where God's love is poured out for humanity, and in fact is the foundation of the Christian church, that weird, different type of love that is not self-centered at all, that makes God very different than we are. From a traditional Christian understanding, God is Trinity, 3 in 1. We will never really be able to understand just quite what that is. We can try to describe it all we want, but it feels other, different. In a good way, it feels very, very different. Some of the most famous people in the world, people who've made incredible contributions to humanity in the lines of science, art, music, were very different than most people. You could use the term queer in a very positive way to describe them. Matthew Vines describes queer as conveying the following meanings: a departure from social norms, oppositional, adversarial. Let's look at that. Let's dig into that a bit. I believe that the values and actions of God depart from social norms, are adversarial to our human social norms, and would be considered to be oppositional to those who harm the oppressed and the impoverished. The concept of God's grace and love deviates from all societal norms and is oppositional and adversarial to our human understanding of grace and love. In the book of Exodus, God chooses to take the children of Israel out of slavery in Egypt. That action broke Egyptian norms and was oppositional and adversarial to the Egyptian government. In the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, God tells the children of Israel they are to treat those who are foreigners just as natural-born children of Israel, and that they are to love foreigners as they love themselves. Exodus chapter 20 indicates that slaves are to be given the day off on Sabbath, just like the children of Israel take the day off from work. Exodus chapter 21 indicates that children of Israel were to free Hebrew slaves on the 7th year. Exodus chapter 22, God forbids the mistreatment of foreigners. Deuteronomy 27, those who mistreat foreigners are cursed. In Matthew chapter 25, feeding the hungry and giving the thirsty drink is considered to be giving hospitality to Jesus. All of these things go against societal norms. Yes, all those things not only go against social norms, they are oppositional and adversarial to what many of us do and consider to be appropriate. I wonder if God is concerned about us not being quite queer enough, as opposed to being queer. If God isn't concerned more about the fact that we do not depart enough from social norms by being loving and caring and compassionate, and that we are not oppositional enough and adversarial enough to systems that endorse or allow the mistreatment of others, I believe God would like us to be very queer.